so much that we're going to talk about this morning, but I was told to make reference to the men's conference that is not done. So today, the men's conference chapter 2 is going to talk about deliberating on the state of the economy and how the punishments are going to be issued to, for lack of a better word, this morning. And I do apologize for anybody who find this very, very palatable this morning, for simps, in quotes, who were disciplined yesterday. So today we're going to look at the state of the economy on the men's conference and also talk about the punishments that are going to be issued to the aforementioned. Again, the booking process of the buses is going to start to transport us from the men's conference. It's going to start this evening because it was oversubscribed. Expect your man to be home probably on Sunday evening or latest Monday in the morning. It's going to be Monday afternoon because then Monday they'll again go to work. That's how it is. We're expecting fuel to come down by maybe 50 shillings. It's not. So there's going to be traffic jams from leaving from the men's conference because we have to use the cheapest means possible. That's it. That's what we're going to talk about today at the men's conference. So please do not expect him home. Anyway, this morning as well, we're going to look at how members of parliament opened the sanction. Raila Amolo Odinga is telling them, well, you have until the end of the week to pass the Nadco report. But they did not. As expected, they pretty much jumped into what was of more importance to them. That is the NCGDF. There was a proper debate around it. And that's exactly what we're going to look at this morning with the analyst. We're going to join us in the studio shortly so that we could essentially dig deep into why and how this particular report then is going to be important in a house business as they are officially back from that long recess. My name is Simba Kiage. This is the Morning Drift. You can join us online at Lookuptv across all the social media platforms. The hashtag is the Morning Drift. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, take a look at exactly what it is that you're waking up to on your daily list. All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. This is Lookuptv. My name is Simba Kiage. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation is talking about secrets of Raila's AU job bid. Opposition leader Raila Odinga is keen to return to the African Union to head the AU Commission, a higher profile job than the one he held at the last continental body before his controversial exit last year. Besides relying on the Kenyan government, he has activated his networks around African capitals to assess whether his bid has potential for success or it is a doomed voyage. Story covered on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Story on Kelvin Kiptum, the record holder, still continues to take shape for quizzed after death of star athlete. I read that story on page 2. The bigger news is just how the shilling is bouncing back. It's rallying heavily against the dollar. Remember, we were approaching 164. We're waking up this morning when you could be buying it at 155 shillings. Yeah, that's a big shift. The shilling bounces back in dramatic surge against the dollar. It has been on a free fall for a long time this year and towards the end of last year. All of a sudden, we're seeing this upturn in the standing against the greenback. That story has been covered on the back page. There's also exposed now state farms that are run by officials with bogus papers. The story has also been run on the back page. There's a story here. You're really going to read it. It's more than 2,000. I mean, when you look at it, your Thermal Development Corporation, 63 certificates not authentic, 47 dismissed, 16 have essentially just resigned immediately this investigation started. When you look at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 3 officers forged degree certificates, 1 forged a diploma. The Ministry of Interior, 103. That's where the rot is. 78 NEC certificates forged, 2 degree certificates forged, and 23 diplomas diploma, forged as well, all the way to EBC that has 13. There's also Rongo University that has lecturers who have fake NEC certificates. It's a rot that EACC is essentially trying to uproot from the public service. That is the Daily Nation this morning. Let's cross over to the Standard, and this is what they're talking about: how fugitive in US lover's death was caught. That is the story of one Kiage and his relatives having a drink at a home in a gong. All right, you're going to read that story on page 6 of the Standard. Well, those are the details gathered from Kevin Kanyethe's relatives, who were rounded up by police, intelligence briefs, and called data-enabled detectives to narrow down the search area and seize the fugitive, who is wanted in the US for the murder of his lover. Good. Some story, Raila's fresh dilemma of a top AU job, story covered on page 10. And the story here on page 40 on world's most expensive footballer. Yeah? You're going to read this morning. Now, for those who know, then, see, Osime is right here. Yeah? Yep. Choose your own path, and work hard. Then, as time goes on, your parents will support you. That is Rachel Kundananji, who's the world's most expensive female player currently, as it is. All right. She now plays for BFC. She has scored 33 goals in 43 Liga F games for Madrid CFF. She was essentially bought at around 131 million Kenyan shillings equivalent. That is around 860,000 US dollars. Yeah, that's how it is. Pretty much. Let's cross over to the Business Daily this morning. Firms are essentially planning to lay 15% of staff on a tough economic outlook. That's according to CBK. You're going to read that story and also look at exactly how the markets ended yesterday. All of them on the red, all the way from NSE 20 index to NSE all share. That closed at negative 0.4%, 7.4% to be exact. And the day before, it also did close on negative 0.67%. Good. Oh, by the way, just going back to the Standard, there's a story here about how lovers paint city red to celebrate Valentine's Day. Yeah. Just a picture here of Catherine Wambui at Giam Florist City Market in Nairobi yesterday. Yeah, to those who got to celebrate it, congratulations. We wish you the very best. For those of us who are still attending the men's conference, we'll still be there, probably until the end of this week. Yeah. What is Valentine's? Hii time ya kucelebrate mlitoa wapi bwana na vile uchumi iko chini? At the least amount of money you spent yesterday was 6,000. Come back with the news this morning. A heated debate ensued yesterday in Parliament as the lawmakers drawn from the two sides of political divide sought answers as to why there is a delayed disbursement of funds allocated to the NGCDF kitty. The angry lawmakers castigated the Treasury, CS Njuguna and Ndung'u, for the delay even after the government made a commitment last year to release the funds by January this year. With 5 months remaining to the tabling of the budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, the lawmakers now want the government to release the remaining funds as they warn key projects at grassroots levels are adversely affected. Henry Tende with the details.
That the general supply
with barely 5 months to the tabling of the budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, members of parliament from both the government and the opposition are up in arms over delayed disbursement of funds meant for development at grassroots level under the NGCDF program. Until today, only January funds have been released by the Treasury, with the lawmakers pushing for the release of the entire amount to facilitate various projects before the new budget sets in.
The head of this country stood in my constituency and said the economy has improved. And if the economy has improved, where is the money of CDF?
You find leadership of majority defending the executive when the executive is not releasing money, yet other ministries and state departments are receiving allocations, and I'm aware.
This money is not for members of parliament. This money is for our constituencies. It is for the whole country, Mr. Speaker, and the only equalizer in development that we can be able to see.
Efforts by the Eldama Ravine MP Musa Sirma, who is also the chair of the NGCDF committee in the National Assembly, to defend the government over the delay were met with strong objection from the lawmakers, who threatened to eject him from the seat for failing to address issues affecting the elected members.
How sure are you, Honorable Sirma, that these monies, the 47 billion plus that is outstanding, is going to be disbursed by the end of this financial year? There's no guarantee.
As you are trying to tell us to keep on waiting and waiting, the ministries are doing their business on a serious note. So are we saying that you don't want members to support the local economies?
This is totally embarrassing, totally unacceptable. You are putting all of our jobs on the line. Where?
MPs have always argued CDF funds are critical in addressing challenges affecting their constituents, which include but not limited to a lack of school fees and sanitary pads for girls. They remain adamant the government must release the money.
Projects which were planned for as way back as June last year are yet to be implemented as a result of lack of exchequer releases. The schools in Kenya, instead of receiving 50% of capitation, they received 20. So in a week or two, the schools will not be operating. The day schools will send children home. What will we do with those children? Why are we trying to kill a generation?
Children of Kenya do not belong to Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. They are the children of the nation. They are the future.
With the government insistent it's faced with an acute shortage of funds, and with MPs pushing even harder for the CDF funds, it remains to be seen what will happen in the next 5 months. Henry Tendanyula, Lookuptv.
President William RUTO has reiterated his government's commitment to ensure all students stay in school by setting aside another 7.5 billion shillings for the junior secondary schools. Speaking in Kiambu County, the head of state hit out at those opposing the affordable housing and social health programs. The head of state further noted that the housing program has created job opportunities for the youth, a promise he made during the campaign period.
Niliwaambia ya kwamba maneno ya CBC na watoto wetu tutapanga ili watoto wetu wapate masomo ya kutosha. Mwaka mmoja sasa tumeajiri walimu 56,000 na nimekubaliana na hao wabunge katika budget ya mwaka huu tena tunaajiri walimu wengine mwaka huu 20,000. Ndio watoto wetu wote waende shuleni, wapate walimu, wasome, ndio tuweke usawa katika taifa letu la Kenya. Nimesikia juzi ati kuna watu wanaambiwa atienda nyumbani uende ulete school fees ya JSS. Mimi nataka niseme hapa, serikali ya Kenya tumetoa bilioni 7.5 ya kusomesha watoto wetu wa JSS. Hakuna mzazi anahitajika kulipa school fees ati mambo ya JSS. Kila mtoto aende shuleni, na kama kuna mzazi hapa mtoto yake yako nyumbani, kesho aende shuleni bila school fees, kwa sababu serikali ya Kenya imelipa gharama ya watoto wetu. Kama tuko na mpango ya kusomesha watoto wetu, lazima vile vile tuwe na mpango ya vile watapata ajira, na ndio sababu tumeweka mpango mkubwa wa affordable housing. Hiyo affordable housing tunataka iajiri vijana 1,500 kila mwaka. Na unajua, niliuliza hao watu wa opposition, mbona mnapinga housing? Hii ya digital jobs hata hamuelewi. Ile ya kusema Wakenya waende wafanye kazi ngambo, mnapinga. Nyinyi mko na mpango gani? Najua vile walisema ati wanapanga maandamano. Sasa nikuulize wewe, mtu ya lari, maandamano ni kazi mtu anaweza kwenda kufanya? Sio, ni ujinga mingi sana.
The cabinet has approved government's plans to digitize the entire education system, right from basic education to tertiary and university levels. The approval now means that all parents will be required to pay school fee through the e-citizen platform, despite court orders halting the directive issued by PS Lookuptv. According to a dispatch from State House, the cabinet also approved the non-profit making state corporations. Some of the corporations to be sold include the Kenya Safari Lodges and Hotels, Sunset Hotel, Golf Hotel, Mount Elgon Lodge Limited, and Cabernet Hotel Limited. Defense Cabinet Secretary Aiden Duale on Wednesday appeared before the Public Investment Committee on Governance and Education to answer to questions regarding the management and leadership issues surrounding Kenya Space Agency as raised by the committee. Duale blamed the Treasury for delaying the allocation of the funds for the recruitment of 49 officers of the agency. Stanley Lugaria attended the sanction and now files the following report.
The way the ministry is wishy-washy.
With funds for the Kenya Space Agency yet to be disbursed, the Treasury found itself between a rock and a hard place, explaining why they had not approved the allocation means to facilitate the operations of the Kenya Space Agency during a session involving Treasury and Defense CS Aden Duale before the Public Investment Committee on Governance and Education.
And you realize that Kenya Space Agency is such a very important component. Okay? Why did you propose and give them the money, propose for the money they wanted? Sources for you to be able to go and recruit, so you needed to have the requisite budget and resources. How long does it need to have a budget?
It doesn't take long, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sure you've seen some of the steps, positive steps that have been acknowledged by the Honorable Minister in terms of running this through a phased approach.
So in a nutshell, Chairman, I've given all the attachments. Our colleagues in National Treasury were very slow.
Defense CS Aden Duale lamented over officers of the agency having to serve in acting capacity following the law that the approval must be done by the Treasury, complaining that the funds allocated for the whole operation was reduced during the supplementary budget process by the Treasury.
In the approved establishment, because by then now we had everything from SCAP, SRC, everything was, so they were only sought now the approval of National Treasury, both in terms of giving us approval and giving us budget allocation. A budget allocation of Kenya for Kenya Space Agency for personnel emoluments amounting to 115,511,722 in the financial year 2022-2023.
Because we need a very firm commitment, which I'm not sure my brother Kibet may provide. We need this thing active yesterday. So when are you going to provide what the ministry has written to you?
Duale further explained that the current acting head of the agency was as a result of board's inability to promote him to that position, however admitting that the selection process was a sham conducted by the then CS Eugene Wamalwa. The committee issued a 1-week directive for the Treasury CS Njuguna Ndungu to appear before the committee for further clarification.
DG in acting capacity, and the board considered pre-advertisement of the position. The current DG was appointed on 29th of June 2021 following the failure to identify a suitable candidate in the first interview process. Chairman, that is what the position was then. I was not in the ministry, but I think it's not tidy. They should have done better.
Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
A motion against a Kisii Deputy Governor, Dr. Robert Monda, has been tabled in the County Assembly. This comes amid recent allegations from a section of residents over frosty relations between the Deputy Governor and his boss, Governor Simba Arati, which is strongly dismissed. The motion was tabled by Ichuni Ward MCA Wycliffe Siocha.
Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Mondo is a man under siege after a motion to remove him from office was tabled in the County Assembly. The authority were presented in the Court Assembly. The motion tabled by Ichuni Ward MCA Wycliffe Siocha highlights violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, commitment of crimes and violation of ethics of public officers as the charges leveled against the county's deputy chief.
But only maybe to highlight that the violations that he has done. Number one is he has violated the 2010 Constitution of Kenya. Number two, he has abused his office. Number three, he has committed crimes under the national law or laws. And number four, his code of conduct or conduct as a deputy governor is really wanting. So I may not be able to digest much of the accusations.
However, nominated MCA Karen Magara noted that the procedure to impeach Monda has been initiated, accusing him of failing to deliver on his mandate as deputy governor. Magara further said that 51 members of the County Assembly have voted to support the motion.
We want to assure the public that we are going to ensure that the process is followed to the letter, and that we are going to ensure that fairness, even to the accused DG, is going to be respected. We have started the process this morning. We are going, of course, to give him time for him to come and defend himself.
On his part, Nacheki Ward MCA Naftal Onkoba noted the Assembly will fully scrutinize the charges tabled against the Deputy Governor, calling on local leaders to ensure proper services delivery to the electorate.
So I'm asking our Governor, Honorable His Excellency Paul Simba Arati, to keep aside, give the Assembly time to do its duty, let him not interfere, because this matter is touching on his office. I'm also asking the CECs and chief officers who are not working, who are involving themselves in corruption deals and activities, that their time is coming, so they should change.
Features Lookuptv.
More than 3,500 litres of illicit brew was seized in a Kimilili area of Bungoma County in an operation led by local authorities. As Nicholas Musonya now reports, the operation, which was led by Bungoma Deputy County Commissioner Jackson Olenchito, saw 2 illicit brew dealers get arrested.
With the government stepping up its fight against illicit brew in the country, more than 3,500 litres of illicit brew has been seized in Kimilili, Bungoma County. The search led by Bungoma Deputy County Commissioner Jackson Olenchito saw 2 people said to be illicit brewers arrested. Speaking after the search, the Deputy County Commissioner noted that they will continue with the search.
We are going to follow them day and night. We were able to arrest 2 main brewers and 1 lady who was selling bang.
On the other hand, Kimilili OCPD Mwita Maroa called on politicians not to support brewing of illicit liquor in the area, with its effects felt across the county.
We'll bring them on board. Hata hao wenye ni wanasiasa wetu tunawasihi ama tunaomba kwamba wazidi kushirikiana na waeleze ubaya wa hii mambo na pombe haramu. Imeangamiza jamii nyingi, imerudisha maendeleo nyuma katika hili sehemu. So kwa ufupi ni kwamba ni wajibu wa kila mmoja, awe mwanasiasa, awe nani kushirikiana na polisi na kuhimiza kwamba tuangamize kabisa hali gani hii hali ya upombe.
Msonye Onesmus, Lookuptv.
Well, this is what is going on. The National House is back from recess, long recess you would say. They come back when Raila Amolo Odinga is already told his side what they have to do once they get back to the National House. In fact, he did say this week that they only have this week to ratify all those proposals on the Nadco report into law. While they came back on Valentine's Day, and we did see exactly what they spoke about, and we're going to talk about it this morning. But then the Nadco report politics, well, they happened, but this morning we're going to see exactly whether indeed the National House chair of the business, Moses Wetangula, was aware that indeed there are pressing issues that he had to sort of get brief from the majority leader and minority leader from both sides. But yes, they spoke, and especially the minority leader essentially went right ahead to say, we are all about NCGDF. But remember, also NGCDF is included in the Nadco report. So what was of importance to these members of parliament is to actually get NCGDF money released. But there was no mention of the Nadco report. See, what's going on is that select committee that was put in place last year by the president, or should I say back in 2022, is already started its process of getting IEBC their commissioners. So what's going to happen? Should that report be ratified when we already have the IEBC commissioners in place? This morning, I'll be introducing the guest who will be joining us this morning. I already see Sandy already in the studio. He's the County Liaison Manager, UDA Party. We're also going to talk to Muthiora Karriera, who's the party leader, TGN. Most expecting to walk into the studio is Momanyi Joshua, who also vied as a speaker in Kisii County Assembly. Once we come back, the Nadco report politics.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Bua muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya, lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari hutatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka, hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia, ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv every Sunday. Unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi, na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
If you want to have a proper outlook of the economy, then you have to speak to the balls and gears of the integral businesses in the country.
And I want to be able to make the youths and everybody coming up in Kenya know that this is here locally.
Men and women in the thick of the bust of markets rising and falling, fighting to make their business decisions stick.
I've always lived in my career that I can never be late.
You need to train by yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Then from there you can compose yourself and give kind of services like this.
On season 2 of the Captain's Arena, we seek the inside of the minds, predict the shift in the markets, get inspiration to start and make sense of it all.
Just watch what everybody else is doing and just make sure you're giving back to the society.
Oof. This is the Captain's Arena. All right. Welcome back to the Morning Drift. This is Lookuptv. So, in case you're just joining us, I gotta tell you, members of parliament are back in the National House. It's actually the second day, was yesterday. And their day of National House business, which was their first one, was yesterday. So going back to the National House, knowing very well that there are a couple of issues that they had to look into. On Tuesday, we asked the question, what was going to be of priority to the National House members as they came back from recess? Well, if you were with us on Tuesday, then majority of the analysts that we had on set said it is matters that were close to them. That yes, they would talk about that Nadco report, but basically on issues that were touching the members of parliament. Good. So yesterday then we were treated to that spectacle of members of parliament trying to understand why NCGDF monies were not released. But on the back of this, Raila Amolo Odinga was already threatened to go back to the streets should the IEBC Select Committee continue to do interviews that are going to give us IEBC commissioners, told his side that once you go back to that National House, by the end of this week, by the way, which is tomorrow, I want that you should have already spoken and deliberated on those proposals on the Nadco report so that you pass it in its entirety. This morning then, we have to talk about the Nadco report politics. Is it ever going to feature as House business once these members of parliament are essentially back? Let's take a look at that story then on exactly what the mood was yesterday at the National House. Once we come back, get to table that conversation with the guests who already joined us in the studio.
That the general supply
with barely 5 months to the tabling of the budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025, members of parliament from both the government and the opposition are up in arms over delayed disbursement of funds meant for development at grassroots level under the NGCDF program. Until today, only January funds have been released by the Treasury, with the lawmakers pushing for the release of the entire amount to facilitate various projects before the new budget sets in.
The head of this country stood in my constituency and said the economy has improved. And if the economy has improved, where is the money of CDF?
You find leadership of majority defending the executive when the executive is not releasing money, yet other ministries and state departments are receiving allocations, and I'm aware.
This money is not for members of parliament. This money is for our constituencies. It is for the whole country, Mr. Speaker, and the only equalizer in development that we can be able to see.
Efforts by the Eldama Ravine MP Musa Sirma, who is also the chair of the NGCDF committee in the National Assembly, to defend the government over the delay were met with strong objection from the lawmakers, who threatened to eject him from the seat for failing to address issues affecting the elected members.
How sure are you, Honorable Sirma, that these monies, the 47 billion plus that is outstanding, is going to be disbursed by the end of this financial year? There's no guarantee.
As you are trying to tell us to keep on waiting and waiting, the ministries are doing their business on a serious note. So are we saying that you don't want members to support the local economies?
This is totally embarrassing, totally unacceptable. You are putting all of our jobs on the line. Where?
MPs have always argued CDF funds are critical in addressing challenges affecting their constituents, which include but not limited to a lack of school fees and sanitary pads for girls. They remain adamant the government must release the money.
Projects which were planned for as way back as June last year are yet to be implemented as a result of lack of exchequer releases. The schools in Kenya, instead of receiving 50% of capitation, they received 20. So in a week or two, the schools will not be operating. The day schools will send children home. What will we do with those children? Why are we trying to kill a generation?
Children of Kenya do not belong to Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. They are the children of the nation. They are the future.
With the government insistent it's faced with an acute shortage of funds and with MPs pushing even harder for the CDF funds, it remains to be seen what will happen in the next 5 months. Henry Tendanyula, Lookuptv.
That's what it is then. You will see what they ended up talking about in that particular session. Good. Let me then start introduce the guests who have joined us already in the studio. Like I said, I do have Sunday Oyo. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine.
Let me begin with you this morning. Mudiora, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Happy to have you around. Momanyi, how are you doing, sir? Very, very good. Happy to have you around. Karibu sana. Good. So, you would think that the older paper will come out clearly on what was the first day of National House business. But what essentially was spoken about heavily was on the delays under NCGDF. Of importance, Sandy? You would say that that is of importance to them?
It's very important. Thank you for having me, Simba. CDF, or what now is called NGCDF,
yes,
has a particular roles in the community. Given that many of us were opposed to where it is stationed, because it is now stationed in the hands of a policy maker who is supposed to be checking the government.
No, sir.
But that aside, it has now gained credence in the community. It does a lot of school fees matters, particularly bursaries for children in secondary schools, in TVETs, and in colleges,
yes,
the universities. In fact, many parents have grown to depend on it. It subsidizes what the parents do. This is the time kids are going back to school. Many kids have just come back from up country, and many kids are still in their homes waiting for this money, because it has become undependable source of paying school fees. Issues of security. A lot of security matters in the community.
Yes.
Beefing up, police posts, and all that, and arrangements for that. It is relied a lot on this money of CDF and many other small community development matters. So NCGDF has really become very expensive, very important. If you go to what the one of women reps, the NGAF,
yes, yeah,
it is going a long way in helping, particularly in communities where sanitary towers are hard to come by, like in the minority and marginalized areas. They really rely on this money to be able to give kids, the girls, the sanitary towers and supply to the schools. So, and a lot of it, feeding programs in schools, most of it is subsidized by the NGCDF. There are teachers who are paid by BOM, Board of Management, and all that. The NGCDF comes in to supplement in many of those schools in the rural. So yes, granted that it was hit in a wrong place.
Yes.
But CDF is very important.
Yes.
And that's why this delay is actually going to affect a lot of our learning process.
Yes.
There are a lot of kids who are supposed to have reported to universities and TVETs are still in their homes. I know of many of them that we have tried to help here and there, but still the money is not enough.
Yes.
And you know, what the blunder was, I think, Benicio, was to split these bursaries and scholarships to very different kitties, instead of having it lumped under one roof.
Yeah.
And that's why Belio was talking about recently, that they are trying to institutionalize it under either Jomo Kenyatta Foundation or something, so that it is somewhere one place. But now you have to go to MCA to get some money. You have to go to the governor to get some money. You have to go to the MP to get some money. And all that then distorts the otherwise good intention
yes.
of NGCDF and bursary funds.
And it's a good thing that you've introduced it in the sense of that there was a problem on why it was essentially put to be dispersed from. We're going to come back to that because in the Nadco report, they want the NCGDF kitty essentially entrenched by them in the members of parliament's accounts. Let me also cross over to Mayora. I mean, was that they cleared last year, if you do remember, by going on strike when CDF was not essentially dispersed in good time. They said they're not going to come back to those sanctions until those monies were released. They come back again this year, and that's the first issue on the table. Is that what is closest to them as members of parliament?
It's important. A member of parliament has control over only the CDF. Otherwise, there is no other direct resource that they chaperone. Yes. Even though, according to law, they have no direct influence.
Yes.
So it's very important to them. The last time they were in this kind of a situation, they put out threats, and the government moved to deal with that. Yes. Money was disbursed. So let's address why they are piling pressure. They're piling pressure because the government keeps telling us that the economy has stabilized. We are doing okay as a country. KRA is collecting taxes every other day, and the numbers, according to the government, are good. Monies are being disbursed to other causes and ministries and departments.
Yes.
So the question is, why is CDF not being released? And in the quantities and amounts it should be. That's what needs to be addressed by Treasury.
Pretty much.
So let's face it, it's an important fund. It helps parents.
Yes.
It helps constituents. So when it's not released on time, when it doesn't arrive in the amounts that the members of parliament expect, there are gaps in financing key issues in the community.
Yes.
That aside, I should have begun by reminding Kenyans that we got a very beautiful gift, call it Valentine gift, yesterday, because in the Nadco report, there is an item about how the government should address the high cost of living.
Yes.
And yesterday, the Kenya shilling against the dollar posted the strongest single-day gain. That's a good thing for our country, because if that rally continues, then some of the things that we've been crying about are going to be assuaged.
Yes.
So it was important for me to let Kenyans know that as much as we've been complaining and there has been a lot of gloom,
yes,
at least there is something positive happening, and we should keep hoping that this happens. The Nadco report was supposed to be debated from yesterday. That clearly didn't happen. We have today, and sometimes Parliament can extend their sessions. There are very important issues in there that need to be addressed.
Yes.
So if they do not do it today, then I will say perhaps the leader of Azimio did not rally his troops properly to exert pressure, because work has already gone into that report. We know there are processes that are going on elsewhere that are tied to that report. But then there's still today and tomorrow. I hope this conversation will be held.
Pretty much. I'll be coming to you on that, because on this particular issue for CDF as well, you like to think that the first priority for these members of parliament, since it is something so close to their hearts, since they have a chapter in that Nadco report that talks about making this lawful, they would have passed it and quickly at that. They did not. The only thing they kept on pushing for is for these monies to get released. That you feel, Muthiora, that somebody seated at Treasury knows very well it's not lawful. I mean, the courts have already ruled on it. We can sit back and say, we do not have that money and there's no way you're going to take us. We're not breaking the law.
You are getting it wrong.
Sunday, I'll be coming to you.
Correct something.
Yes.
You know, for sure, the money, where the money was hit was wrong.
Doesn't.
But you know that the parliament went ahead and rectify the situation.
Does that?
The other has actually mentioned, alluded to it.
Yes.
That yes, the members of parliament are pushing for it, but they are not directly in charge of it.
Yeah.
Does
you
that?
know that?
Yes.
Yeah, they are not. So even where it is right now, even after the ruling of the court, the parliament, in its own wisdom, rectified the situation.
Yes.
And kept itself. Although we know it's a facade, but they are not really. They are not in charge. According to the structure and all, they are very far removed. They are actually supposed to be patrons or something.
Yeah.
That is not. But again, the reason why it became very important as a first step, you can't be discussing about it becoming law, whereas the kids are still at home.
That's it. But then.
So the agency, we must appreciate the agency in this matter.
Yes.
That kids are at home,
Yes.
relying on the same. There are medical cases that the firefighting situations in the villages are now not. But much more, again, Simba, anything that human beings, we are wired to fight for our own survival. Members of parliament's survival is also hinged on this. Because now they are not serving.
They're not serving, and that's why the critics of this. I'll be telling you, Sandy, once I'll be coming back to you.
Yes.
What the critics of this are talking about is that the same members of parliament, Momanye, are the ones who are saying, well, capitation to schools is even now at 20%.
Yeah.
They're even worried that majority of the kids who are now in school are not essentially going to have this money that is going to enable them to continue their studies. They say, well, this particular kit that you give us is quite important for us to go in and push this
The
fund.
more reason.
That's it. So somebody's saying, why don't you do away with this kitty then and just push these monies directly to these places that we're talking about, increase capitation for these schools directly from Treasury?
It's a good point, but sometimes you have to understand the core issue here.
Yes.
It's all about linked to the cost of living. Because now these parents at home who are struggling with the fee to
Yes.
all the kids go to school, they also have to feed these kids.
Yes.
Dress the kids.
Momanya, I'm sorry, we're going to come back to you. I'm getting told that we have to fix something little on your microphone, which gives time for Sunday then to come in. Now let's go.
Just,
yes.
Advancing what Momanya is saying.
Yes.
That we have a whole. We have to look. This is a holistic situation. We have to look at it in all facets.
Yes.
By the way, you know, people keep telling us that we should not talk about Uhuru and the mess that they left the country in. We have an animal in this town called CBC. CBC, this government inherited CBC.
Yes.
It inherited CBC without classes. We actually didn't know where the CBC was going to be hosted. That's why the commission that came in recommended let them stay where they are in a primary school. It was there. It didn't have classes. It didn't have books. They didn't have teachers. The curriculum was, and yet we had about 6 generations.
Yes.
Up to grade 6 who already had been pushed through. We didn't have. Now we are going to have the final classes without laboratories. Part of the classes that are being built are built by NGCDF. That was the understanding between the national government and the members of parliament.
Was that the understanding?
Yes.
Was it upon the members of parliament's volution, therefore, that we're going to use part of this money to build this classes?
Actually, they had to meet midway. The national government is bringing in books and teachers.
Yes.
And increasing the capitation.
Yes.
And on the other side, the MPs, so to say, and the national government, CDF, is going to do classes. And that's what they are doing. Right now, they are now graduating to laboratories. And we don't have laboratories. We have kids who are now going to grade 9 next year. And they still haven't done sciences. They haven't done practicals.
Yes.
And this is the rush. So it is so important. Some of us are really opposed to many things that members of parliament do. But for this one, I am with the members of parliament.
Yes.
And I think it is a priority.
Yes.
It needs to be gotten out of the deck first.
Yes.
before we get into laborious discussions of Nadco.
Of the Nadco report.
Yes, because Nadco has a lot of give and take. There's going to be discussions and what have you. Where is this charge?
Sandy, on this particular one, which is I want to still go back to the same question. I mean, the courts really do have a problem with the disbursement of funds within the CDF platform as it is. I mean, the CDF Act, the courts essentially found it illegal as it currently is. And that's why we want to ratify it through the Nadco report. Question is going to be then, I mean, you have a chance here then to ratify it as quickly as that, because there is a feeling, and you can see, majority of them are fighting Treasury for not releasing this money. But then Treasury now have a defense. They will say, on what framework are going to release this money?
No, they have no.
Is that what it is?
Say the law has been ratified.
Yes, but the courts, the courts say, yes.
Let's even correct this situation. There is a notion that now you are creating Simba, that this money has not been released. This is 47 billion.
Of course it has been. Yes, of course it has been released. Part of the money has been released.
Meaning that they've been releasing.
That's it.
What we are having a problem with, even from where I sit, from the village that I come from, I have a problem releasing this money piecemeal. Because the way it is being released by the Treasury, eventually it is not going to be helpful to the people. This money needs to, just the same, the Treasury needs to, the guys at the Treasury needs to put their act in order together and package this money and release it.
Is it Mudera, is it easy to make reference to court by the Treasury and say, well, as far as we are concerned, this particular issue is clear from the courts on exactly where they stand on it?
No, that will be no defense, because if anything, part of it has already been released.
Yes.
And the money was appropriated in the budget.
Yes.
The money should be available to have been disbursed. But the government has not.
Yes.
This takes me back to a time when the government delayed on disbursing civil servants' salaries. They knew they had to pay, but they did not have the money in their accounts. What Treasury needs to do is to come out to the public and say, we are having a challenge because we do not have this money in our accounts right now.
Yes.
Members of Parliament have already expressed their dissatisfaction with the bits that have been released so far.
Yes.
Because you have a budget where you hope that at least they'll give you up to 60% of the funds that are supposed to be given to the kitty every year. And then Treasury only gives you a paltry 20% or less.
Yes.
So Treasury should come out and tell us that maybe the delay is because they would like to disburse more than they have done before.
Yes.
Or they completely do not have this money in their coffers, but are working to have it all together so they can release it. They cannot rely on the court ruling, which has up to date been addressed by measures that Parliament put in place. So that's no defense for Treasury.
Yes.
Treasury needs to release this money like yesterday.
That's it. I'll be coming to you on that. So we see where the critics are on this particular issue are from. And we want to know your stand, whether you're okay with the members of Parliament essentially controlling a kitty as an oversight authority when it comes to funds.
Even
management.
before we go there, my answer is no.
Yes.
But given where we are
Yes.
at the moment,
Yes.
this money needs to be released because there is a framework for it to have been disbursed.
Pretty much. Momanyi, it's a good thing that we have you online right now. You were talking about how this whole issue is essentially intertwined around the cost of living.
Absolutely. Because the moment we are in the current situation, everything goes around how are we going to survive? To pay for the fees, our own, and also for investments. Now you find this parent has more than 5 kids, or rather 4 kids. All have to go to school. Looking at the financial situation, the current situation after the COVID-19, which at least brought the economy down a little bit, now you have to figure out the way to take the kids to school.
Yes.
And here there are programs from the ward fund, the governors, and the CDF. So this one, this parent has to look for ways to get the money. The first option, there's free money from the government, which he contributes directly through the taxes. So he has to go for it. So pressuring the member of parliament that I voted for you, so I need the CDF. Now it's the right. Now this member of parliament has also to champion for that.
Yes.
Whether it's either legal or illegal. Either it's illegal or illegal.
Yes.
He has to go for it. Demand. So that's why when they came, as my friend has said, that when they came back to parliament, the first thing was the NGCDF to be released or to be tabled. And when you go to the Nadco report, they're going to legalize it. So if something has been the norm from the previous regimes before even our 2010 constitution, the CDF was there. So it's been ongoing. It's only that the constitution does not capture it or legalize it. It only mandates the members of parliament to do the legislative work. So with that, and there's this norm from the previous regimes that the CDF. So if it was there and it's been normalized, so why can't they release it to this parliament for this year or for the previous financial year? So that's why they were championing for it. So you cannot just end it. So they have to legalize it. Because if they fail to do so, there will be the public outcry, which can lead to demonstrations. So that's where they need to, the CBK has to move quickly, or the finance, or they have to move quickly and to ensure that these funds are there, to ensure the kids go to school, because that's where the source. But there's need for us to at least bring all this stuff together from the governors, the ward. It's becoming a messy, having it on various fronts.
And that's what I want to come. That's what I want us to jump into next. And Sandy, picking from where Momanya's left it, I want to point you to a ruling that was made by a 5-bench judge that essentially sat down and looked at why having the members of parliament control a fund as envisioned in the 2010 constitution is essentially illegal. And I'm going to read that particular judgment. And we did this particular story, by the way, on 4th of May 2023, when this particular ruling was made by that 5-judge bench. And they said that it rules that in August 2022, that the CDF Act violates the principle of separation of powers. Good. They continued. Then we did a commentary where one of our analysts said, yeah, Treasury, under the pressure from the executive and the National Assembly, disbursed the funds to the kitty. It's the latest disbursement we're talking about that was made in 2023. Parliamentarians staged a go-slow with the president promising them that the funds would be disbursed. To bend to the whims of the legislature and the executive, the way the National Treasury did sets a very bad precedent. And this was one of our analysts who came to the studio and said that indeed, if the members of parliament then would want to push for these funds, first, make it legal as it is. Why not first make it legal as it is? Let it be cleared. And that particular story is what we're talking about this morning. The proposals are right there on the Nadco report. Why can't you start with it? So that as you keep on pushing for it, we know that you're right within the precinct of law. Sunday.
I want to dissuade you from that way of thinking, because already, like Brother Mudiora told us, there is a framework for disbursement which exists. And that's there is a committee. There is already a whole department. Actually, I think it's almost a parastatal on NCGDF, a whole board. There is also a committee of parliament on NCGDF, headed by Honorable Musa Sirma. And it has a whole committee of members. And it prosecutes business of the Republic of Kenya. So there is a framework already. There is a whole structure all the way to the constituency for disbursement of that money. And even the auditing of it. So there exists a framework. What the Nadco seeks to do is to bring the members of parliament to the forefront in managing the fund. That's period. Right now, they are managing it through proxy. That's why they say we are not part of it, but we advocate, which is a lie. So they are trying to sanitize that. To the other question, what Momanyi and Mudere spoke to, I personally am also agreeing with the ruling that surely there is no way a person who has been employed to be an oversight, to play the oversight role, becomes again a dispenser, the management of an executor. Yes. Because our constitution envisaged separation, clear separation of powers. And right now, if you look at one of the Nadco recommendations, it recommends NCGDF to be entrenched in law. It recommends GAF to be entrenched. It recommends county ward development fund. It is now coming up with the senators oversight fund. All those it's murky. It's like Momanyi says. It is a mess. And the problem with that again becomes this way. In fact, Kenyans will eventually get hurt. Because what happens is, whenever you want now anything, whenever the national government wants anything from parliament, these guys will blackmail the executive. They will say, if our money is not there, we won't pass it. So the best way to do it for the treasury to get away with what they want is to put CDF there, and then you put many other things that don't make sense, and then it's passed in what we call omnibus. So it becomes a whole package, even when it doesn't make sense, even it doesn't, the oversight roles are not played, it is not right. But you see what you are saying, like for example, the president, they will blackmail the president. And this president may go around it. How about the next? How about the other one? We don't know the nature of presidents we are going to have in the future. So this one may find a way to go around it. But the other ones may be defeated, kabisa, and eventually we will have a rogue parliament that then blackmails the executive to have their way.
So Sunday, are you saying just release the money?
For now, yes.
Regardless.
For now, because we have this structure and we have the common man, where the primary beneficiary is that person, and we know the person. I'm a politician, I'm in the village. We are from the village. I came from the village to this program, and I've just left kids who are supposed to go to Sigalagala technical. They are back. They are still in the village. I've left kids who are supposed to go to Shada KMTC, are still in the village. Some of them were in my house yesterday when I was leaving, and they are asking for help to go to school. I have kids in school. My wife is actually a chair of the JSS section of the primary school, where in our village, and that JSS, they are struggling. Even they were asking for us, some of the neighbors, to start helping with the laboratory and desks to the school, because the JSS has teachers already. The national government posted teachers, but those teachers have no place even to sit. So the CDF does that. I have no friends on Insango Primary School, and they are waiting for this money. There is no, and the school land is now in jeopardy, because anybody can come and grab. Cows come from every direction to the compound, and this is what Honorable Salasia, who is my local member of parliament, needs that money to be able to do that first. And I understand that absolutely. What I'm saying is that the overall principle was wrong.
In terms of having members of parliament essentially
manage this. And that's why we are agreeing that these bursaries and funds and school and everything needs to be tied up, needs to be cleaned up, needs to be put into a particular central kitty where everybody can go in. Even the disbursement itself is also questionable, because then you'll find an MP who comes with his style of doing it, or her style of doing it, giving it to people who voted for him. And those who didn't vote because your father, your mother didn't vote for us, you don't get the money.
But here's what we're talking about, Mudiora, this morning. And I keep on going back to this particular ruling by the judges, because it was not essentially on the illegality. The entire ruling essentially was deep, up to the basis of talking about how is it that a member of parliament is going to do the same functions that a county government is supposed to do. So we're supposed to give these funds to any other person. Yes. You're supposed to give them the accounts. And I'm going to read, and I'm going to read exactly what the notes from these judges as well, so you weigh in on it as well. And this is exactly what they're saying. The court also held that the CDF offends the division of functions between the national county and the county governments, since CDF assumes to undertake functions that have already been devolved. That you're building a classroom when we do know very well that the county government is also supposed to come in and build these classrooms that you're building. So which classrooms are these that you're supposed to come in and build? You're coming in to build roads that the same county governments are also pushing for. So on this particular basis then, I mean, any other person with your, even you seated right there, will say, well, county governments are here crying that the national government is not giving them the capitation. That is, the revenue allocation is not complete as it is. But members of parliament are also here fighting for kitty that is supposed to do the same function the county government. So give that money to the county governments and tell them, well, build schools, build these roads.
On the principle of separation of powers,
yes,
the CDF flies against that. When it comes to devolved functions, there is conflict as well.
Yes.
But the expectations by citizens on the ground, their expectations are valid. That CDF meets needs that right now are pressing.
So why can't you change it, Mudiora?
Well,
so change it like we're saying now. I mean, ratify it. Say, well, when it comes to bursaries, we have a bursary fund. Members of parliament don't essentially have to come in and manage this fund.
That has already been addressed.
Yes.
Like I say, there's a framework that has served over time.
Yes.
People went to court, these matters were canvassed there, rulings were made, and that's how we've had CDF rolling over. If you count, there are so many other rulings before the one that you're just reading. So measures have been instituted, and that's what has guided the disbursement and implementation of the CDF fund. So we now have the Nadco report, which, by the way, seeks to now entrench the illegality that you're talking about. Because that's what it will do. So as we await that, let's first address the need that exists, which is there are classrooms that need to be paid for. There are bursaries that need to be disbursed. There are roads that need to be paved. And by the way, you mentioned about the conflict of roles. We know that currently the county governments do the early...
The childhood development programs.
And then the rest is done by national government. And CDF is part of that national government.
So there's no conflict in that.
Machinery.
Yes.
When you go to roads, we have classifications of roads. We have Kenha roads, Kura, Urban,
Kera,
yes,
all that. So we've gone ahead to have a framework where these conflicts have been minimized.
Yes.
But that said, we need to do more, which is why this morning we are discussing the adoption and implementation of the Nadco report.
Yes.
So let us allow for the members of parliament to make as much noise as they can so that these monies are released, they go and untie those who depend on these funds. Truth be told, there are people who rely 100% on the CDF to educate their children. You go to the northern frontier, they give full scholarships and bursaries from these CDF kitties. So if that money is not released, there is a student that is seated at home that's not able to go to school. Yet, this money will eventually be released because according to law, that money was already appropriated for. So the delay is why members of parliament are making noise. And besides, why it was the first item on the order business is CDF is the bread and butter for members of parliament.
So you would expect that when it comes to the order of events that they're going to talk about, they would essentially talk about it, isn't it?
Yes, it's top priority for them. Look at how they have discharged their duties since they were sworn in.
Yes.
They've basically been playing along to everything the executive has wanted. Now, for once, they have an opportunity to serve their people.
Yes.
If I was a member of parliament, I would fight for that, because so far there's no court ruling that gives Treasury the authority to not disburse these funds and in the amounts that they are supposed to.
Yes. Sandy, let me cross over to Manyi, because I'm jumping to you. I want you to pick.
Before I forget this, there is just a follow up. I think redirect this discussion from the importance of CDF to actually what Modera has alluded to. The biggest issue actually about CDF and bursary is inequalities.
That's what we're coming to next. It's a good thing that you're talking about it, because the proposals, some of the proposals that we've seen in the Nadco report are essentially going to bring us back to what BBI, that was a heavily shut down in the country, was talking about, the one man, the one vote, one shilling. All right? Which essentially is going to look at, even when you're talking about disbursing this bus to some counties, and I will tell you why. Some constituencies that are essentially bigger than some counties in this country are receiving the same capitation in terms of this CDF, which makes them quite unequal. Which is why I started by that here we are fighting for these funds when there are proper proposals that are essentially going to make it even better in that Nadco report that they should have started with. Do you feel some sort of disarray from both ends? I mean, from the majority side and minority side, in terms of presenting their views in it? Because had they started with that particular proposal for Nadco report, they would have already said, yes, we agree that we're gonna manage it. And on top of that, there's a proposal here on CDF that is essentially going to make it more effective. They got it wrong. Can we make that assumption?
Absolutely. But looking at the situation from the BBI thing, coming forward, sometimes you have to try some things. You see how is they probably going to take it before you table it. So they shut down the BBI, which had some good advocacy on it, on ensuring that those densely populated areas, or where the majority of the Kenyans are, especially in the central part of Kenya, gets enough capitation or sufficient capitation to cater for that population. Because they vote in large numbers for the good leadership, and they contribute much to the GDP of our economy. We get more taxes from where people are centered. That's where this business is thriving. That's where this consumption, that's where this expenditure, and that's where the government collects enough revenue to run the operational costs and the construction of now these classrooms and the facilitation of these members of parliament, everything. So when they say, when we look at it now that in this the Nadco report, going to the CDF thing, when we legalize it, we're going to ensure that those constituencies with the highest population or with the highest number of voting citizens are going to receive sufficient money. Now going forward, if we look deeper legally, we're going to see that also the marginalization, when we move forward with this issue after it has been legalized, we're going to see that these other marginalized areas are going to see that, of course, we are less, or we don't have the enough voters, or the population is less, the number of that one man, one shilling, or one vote. When you look at that, they are going also to bring the issue again in future.
In fact,
so with that, there is also going to be other things which are going to be added. That's where the Mr. Sunday has said that they're going to be the omnibus, that the treasury gives them this, and then they encompass some other elements in between, because you are feeding them, they are not going to cater what you are going to bring next, because they have received the food. It's the food they wanted. They want to look at the plate which brought the food.
Yes.
The only thing they need is the food, not the plate. You just come with the food. So they are going to get that, the CDF for funds, but they're not going to look at other elements which are going to come with these regulations.
Pretty much. Sunday, you said on that particular point.
On that particular point, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The illegalities aside and the problems that will come with it, there is a major fundamental issue of what he's talking about. Actually, is alluding to what we call the session paper number 10.
Yes.
Of I think it was 1969 or 1967, 66, by the late Tomboya, who was our Minister for Planning there. And his thinking was, let's put more money where there is production and more high consumption to raise the high potential areas. But that aside, you see now, you have alluded to a situation. Kikuyu constituency, which has inhabitants of almost 2 million, has over 200,000 voters. They get the same amount with Garsen, which has 3,000 voters.
Does it?
Or Garissa,
which has 70,000 inhabitants.
70,000 inhabitants has less than 3,000. It gets the same with Lamu East.
Does it?
Which has less than 2,000 voters. About 2,000, 3,000 voters. Lamu West has about 5,000 voters.
Yes.
You are comparing with Ruiru, which has almost 150,000 or 200 thereabout voters.
Yes.
The 1 man, 1 shilling was the only same thing that was in BBI. And for me, like for example, in the West, in Western Kenya, in Kisii, where money comes from, that makes a lot of sense. Because then, we have just said there is a child from Garissa, from Wajir, from Marsabit, from Mandera, who gets full scholarship from the NGCDF. Full. And then this kid is paid for. Like right now, there is an advert that has just been run by KMTC.
Yes.
And they're saying they are looking for marginalized and minority kids. They will be paid for full scholarship. It is running. Then these kids get that from the MP, from the government. The MP gives them accommodation.
Yeah.
The county government gives them food. And this kid will eventually go to school free. They will be more advantaged than those from my constituency. Like for example, my MP has decided initially the order of the day was we give 10,000 for only 1 child from 1 family.
Yes.
Right now he has said no. So long as you are in secondary school, so long as you are in TVET, so long as you are in college, irrespective of how many of you are in the same family, I'll give you all of you, but I'll reduce to 5-5. It is helping, but how much?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yes. So now the question.
So did they get it wrong? Did they get it wrong? Because this Nadco proposals actually did have this in it.
Yeah.
They did have this in it. Kenyans stood at Kenya's one of the bombers of Kenya. They presented it.
Yes.
And majority of this was adopted in that particular
Yes.
report. So did they get it wrong with the order by saying, well, we want this money, but is it going to help? We're sitting here talking about.
I wanted to say,
yes.
You know, by the way,
yes.
These issues of, this Nadco report is a political report. And it's a political report, what we call is laced with sweeteners. And part of this, the World Fund, the Senate Fund,
yes.
the NGAF, all these are sweeteners for other things to come. I can tell you. The main thing in this report is the official opposition leader's position.
It's the creation of jobs.
The main thing in this is the Prime Minister's position and the deputy.
Yes, yes.
The main thing is the negotiation about the IBC and the restructuring. Now we are going, like where you started from, we are now getting out of the law.
And I'm going to come to that. Yes. Once we come from this book, we're going to talk about IEBC and the way it is. But here's the question, Mudiora. I mean, Raila Amolo Odinga has been vocal on it. Yes. We're coming back from recess, fine. But by the end of this week, I want you to look at that particular report and pass it.
Yes.
What are we fighting for CDF? If there's somebody, there's Anfanya Mambo this morning, if you're watching, good morning, sir. It's sad right there where Mumanye said it and said, if you look at the number of kids now, for example, from a constituency in the central part of Kenya, and then you divide by the 137 million yearly that a member of parliament from that constituency receives, the majority of these parents are going to get 2,000 shillings each. If indeed you're going to talk about the amount of money and the amount of activities that CDF fund is supposed to get. Then he asks, today, what can 2,000 shillings do to help a parent who's taking their kid to school?
Not much. But you see, when you deny the disbursement of that fund, then even that other child who would have gotten a full scholarship or full bursary, they'll miss out on the opportunity.
From a different constituency, you mean?
Yes. That aside, let us look at this little thing that we actually should have focused on. They were basically setting the tone for what's to come in the course of the week, which is we want CDF disbursed, full stop. Now, if you want us to pass the Nadco report,
give us our money.
Give us our money. So that's basically what was happening yesterday.
But are you insinuating, because there was nowhere that, Mudiora, I watched it, I was there, I watched it, I sat there.
Yes, you did.
Nowhere the Nadco report came up.
That's because
there was no utterance at all.
That's because they were setting the stage for the disbursement of these funds. Sunday here explained that there are times when an omnibus just passes. That's the season we are in. So you'll give us the money and then we'll deal with the IEBC, Reconstitution Selection Panel. We will pass the Nadco report. But then the CDF is very, very important for us. That's why we gave it attention on day one. So that's what's up. Now, those in charge of those dockets of releasing the monies know they must release these monies. And believe me, before Monday, the CDF kitties will be fully funded. And then the talk about Nadco and IEBC reconstitution and the boundaries delimitation, that will follow. So Kenya, a nation of great people, been driven through unnecessary mud, as we've always done. But we are a resilient people who will survive this. Just let us read the signs. There's blackmail currently going on in Parliament. And there's hoodwinking of the public. Because once these monies are released, the people on the ground will be happy. That finally I got a bursary, I paid, my kid went to school. So that's what this is. And today, that report will be on the table.
Does it? Guess what? I want to take a tiny breather, Sunday, with your Mumanye. Once we come back then, we're going to look into the sentiments of one Raila Amolo Odinga. I mean, it was clear, Sunday. He told its side, look here, once you go back to the National House this week, please make sure that Nadco report is essentially been passed and ratified. But then, if we're going to talk about this week, Sunday, you're talking about tomorrow. Today is Thursday. Is that ever a possibility? Because for the past 2 days, they've not essentially mentioned the Nadco report. Once we come back right here, there is already something that is building up as we're speaking today. The select committee or that panel that was put in place constitutionally by one President Dr. William RUTO is already started doing interviews for those particular positions of IEBC commissioners. According to them, lawful. But then what if tomorrow, just like Raila Amolo Odinga is saying, the members of parliament then adopt those proposals in the Nadco report? What are we looking at? Does he know something that we do not know? Once we come back right here on the Morning Draft.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Tuko hapa Kaptara, tunataka kusema asante sana RUTO Foundation kwa mambo mazuri ambayo wameweza kutufanyia leo. Wakaaji wa hapa Kaptara, wakaaji wa hapa Salawa, wakaaji wa hapa Mujukuo, mpaka wakaaji wote ambao wanatoka hapa Baringo County.
Naambia RUTO Foundation asante kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya. Mungu awabariki.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Right, welcome back. We're talking about the Nadco report politics. We're talking about it, but for the past 2 days, it has not featured at the National House. It has not featured completely. So let's go then to the next issue, which is essentially going to be an eye-opener to all the panelists that we have here today, and I'm looking forward to that particular conversation. Now, you do know very well that that select panel that was put in place by one President Dr. William RUTO and gazetted lawfully by the as per the Constitution of Kenya, is already started conducting those interviews to have commissioners for IEBC. Raila Amolo Odinga has said, and is on quote saying that even if they go right ahead and do those interviews and select IEBC commissioners, he's going to the street. He dared President Dr. William RUTO to come up with those commissioners. He actually dared him. But there's something that is developing this morning that we also have to look at. And Sheila, if you can, the Standard has it this morning, and it's going to inform our conversation this morning. Raila Amolo Odinga might actually be in the running for a top AU job. It's going to be the chair of infrastructure. That essentially means that he might not be able to do active politics right there in the country. Is it telling? Umanyi, let me start with you. First day, second day, the members of parliament do know that there is a committee somewhere, a panel that has already started those REBC interviews. But nobody even said that, Chair, I've listened to it and I do have full notes of it. The Chair, you know, the REBC the selection panel has started doing the interviews and they're going to give us the REBC commissioners. So we need to go back and adopt that report for the Nadco so that we do not go to the street. Nobody raised it from either side. Both of them were all championing for NGCDF.
At the moment, everybody is gambling with what's good for himself or herself. So looking at the NGCDF, we get that these members of parliament are getting pressure from the people who elected them to occupy those offices.
Yes.
They need the CDF. They need the money for the school fees. They need the renovation for the roads, renovations for classrooms, back at home or back to the constituencies. So they won't be focusing on matters to do with IBC, where their own people are suffering. And also on the other note, you note that there's some other areas, wards, and the constituencies which are represented. The members of parliament, maybe they're no longer. So when you look at that, they're also still championing that how can you get the other constituencies to be represented?
Yes.
These other wards where we have the members of parliament or the MCS passed, how can also those people get the representation?
Yes.
So but at the moment, the big thing is that how are our people going to survive, to take their kids to school, to ensure that even the suppliers or the contractors who did the school renovations have gotten the money, that cash flow back in their constituencies. Because this CDF money, when it comes to the constituency, it does the renovations, pays for the school fees. This school fees pays the suppliers who supply the food. So there's that cash flow. So let's look on the other side, which they're still focusing on, which I'm pro it, that let's ensure that they get first the money and then we shall come to the IBC thing. Because if it's not legally done or conducted, then it's null and void. So let's leave with that at that point, but now let's focus that they're ensuring that this money and this Nadco report has been legalized to ensure that there's at least cash flow.
That's it. Mwanya, will be coming to you. But Mudhura, Sunday, here's the question. What do you read into the entire of the issue for IBC? I mean, it's not that they're not aware that that selection panel is already started the process of getting IBC commissioners. We can't sit here and probably think that even the minority side in parliament is not aware of that. They would have raised that immediately, but they haven't, Sunday. What are we looking at?
You know, first of all, we must agree that, like I said, Nadco is a political process.
Naza.
The whole arguments at Bomas of Kenya have been presented to Raila Amolo Odinga and have been presented to the president, and they have agreed. Everything in it, they have agreed with it.
Yeah.
For Raila to say, if you don't have this, I'll go to the streets, is actually telling his members of parliament, I scratched your back once, you scratched mine. Because in this report, the IBC issues are taken care of.
Yes.
Overriding the law. Because the existing panel is established as of law. It is rightfully there. There was a judgment last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
That gave them a mandate to go on.
Yes, by Judge Thande.
Yes. Yes. And it is they are rightfully doing their work. Actually, if not doing, is failing their mandate. They are slowing down to do what they were doing. It was also political.
Yes.
To just give this Nadco thing time to put the act together. If and again, mentioned, and I mentioned it, that there is a lot of a process called the omnibus process. You are worrying about 2 days or 3 days, but I can tell you for sure, between now and midnight, you could have Nadco as law, because nobody is opposing it. Everything in it is okay. And by the end of the day today,
yes,
if the treasury behaves,
yes,
and releases the CDF,
yes,
and then you go to the law, there is the CDF, there is the World Fund, there is the Senators Fund, the Women and GAF, all of it. All of those are icing on the cake.
Yeah.
They will make everything smooth all the way. In fact, for me, the biggest gain in this is the gender, because if we have now a formula to address the two-thirds in this, for me, we are home and dry. If now we have the biggest other gain is on the issue of cost of living. If we now cap it in law, the issues of travels, the issues of reduction of cost in other areas and wastage, if that is going to be capped in law now through this law, that will be a gain. If we have the office of the registrar of political parties, where I and Mudeora come from, the world of politics, political parties, if we have that regulatory board as a commission, more strengthened, they're more funded, because right now the ORPP is not well funded, is not well managed. If we are going to have that as a well streamlined, is good. I know we have lost an opportunity, particularly for me. I am for mixed member or pure member proportional representation.
Yes.
The system we have in MPPR or PR, the system like what we have in South Africa. This will cure all this, so that members of parliament don't have to have we don't have to continue segmenting in this country into small units that are called constituencies. And we don't have national, we call somebody national member of parliament, and yet this national member of parliament still has to go back and speak Quisero, my constituency, and speak Imenti, South Imenti, my constituency. You are a national member of parliament. So be a national member of parliament, so that we leave the local politics to the ward administrators back at home in the wards. So those are some of the things that I thought would be tied up in this, but they have missed that opportunity.
Pretty much. But Sally, I'll be coming back to you. I like the way you're confidently saying that IBC is issue. This is not a big issue. Hold on, Mudeora. It's a big issue.
Well, I'll tell you why it's not. Because it does not concern all Kenyans. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila
It does
Amolo Odinga
concern the members of parliament, though, especially on the minority side. You like to think so?
No, I don't.
It was never
because there is a history to
Come on with
what
your,
I'm saying.
Is it?
Just get this.
Yes.
Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga came together and they decided on who the commissioners were going to be. The people who oversaw the past election were decided upon by those two gentlemen, even though that commission gave us a different choice as to what Kenyans decided through the ballot. So who becomes commissioner today in Kenya does not really determine the outcome of an election. Yes, it's important for these two top protagonists to be in charge of the process, but eventually I can guarantee you it won't matter who those commissioners are. Now, right now we are going through this IEBC selection process, and it's guided by law. the courts cleared that the process can go on. And I'm glad that happened before this Nadco report was adopted, because then would borrow from it to do a process that the Constitution outlines properly. They have proposed that we have a bigger panel from 7 to 9. I guarantee you, just as this Nadco process began before it was entrenched in law, then measures were put in place to make it be as per the law.
Yes.
This election that's currently going on will interject or intersect somewhere with the law, and the panel will be extended. Once it's expanded, the azimio side, or call it the minority side's interests, will be accommodated, and the acrimony that has been there, that they are going to call mass protests and all those other short stories,
yes,
are not going to happen.
Mudera, you say that, but what we are aware is that that selection panel has already started the job.
Yes, and it will keep doing its job, because as per the law,
yes,
that's what it's supposed to do.
But that's
and then along the way,
yes,
Parliament,
yes,
will act guided by the law and add as per the recommendations. That I'm telling you out of experience.
But are you also going to take note of the comments that Raila Amolo Odinga has already had? Number one, because if you're going to read from his notes and you're saying, well, he has told his members of parliament, go past that report as quick as you can before the end of this week, because there are pressing issues, including IBC, that we need to ratify. Number two, he has told the president, you dare give me IBC commissioners, I'm going to go back to the street.
Simba, what you are forgetting is that once this law becomes the new law, the Nadco law,
the Nadco law in courts,
it becomes, then the law that established the panel dies. They cannot coexist concurrently. Immediately the panel will stop. That is number one. Number two, the panel is rightfully doing its work because they have a deadline of March. By March, according to the Constitution, we need to have a commission in place, and it needs to be working on the review, or the boundaries review process, which is pegged in law. So this law, that's why Raila is very bright by saying he cannot go against this panel, which is established and backed by law.
It's not said that.
Yeah,
he said if you continue with those interviews and then come up with commissioners, we're going to go to the street.
Yes, but that is a threat, a vain threat. It's which is
Sunday's done it before.
But what he's saying,
is it not the reason as to why we're even talking about this process
today? But immediately
today?
he follows it up by saying, you members go and pass that law immediately.
Which is what will happen. And once that happens, and the work that this selection panel has been doing is concluded, the two processes will be merged. That I can guarantee you.
Here's a question that that somebody asked, and I'm going to put it to Momanyi, that we've seen majority of our proceedings here as a government, essentially, all the way from housing levy, all the way from SHIV, Maisha number, every other thing that the government has essentially tried to do, that it's been very easy for somebody to challenge in a court. Now, it's a question that somebody asked me yesterday, that here's a law that has been passed on how the constitution of the selection panel that is supposed to give us IBC commissioners should look. But then again, here is a selection panel that is already in place during the period that the law was getting passed that was not essentially lawful in that regard. Are we also looking at a scenario where any other Kenyan will stand up and go to court and say, well, we spent taxpayers' money, went to the Bomas of Kenya, we ratified the report, we gave the government proposals on exactly how IBC was supposed to be reconstituted, but they never followed it. Is it not easy for somebody to go in and sort of say, well, what are they doing in place then?
Well, everything on this old scenario, before I answer that, even the Nadco report, even if the parliament goes and ratifies it, everything is going to come back that we need to change the constitution, because whatever they're going to do, there are some key elements which each and every citizen of Kenya must participate, not all the parliamentarians. When you look at the constitution,
yes,
it's stated that this it belongs to the people.
Does it?
And then now, going to second subsection, it says that these people can be represented. So you cannot ignore what the power that belongs to the people. So even if the Nadco report goes,
yes,
there's a possibility of us going for a referendum or calling for the change of the constitution to accommodate all other elements. So with that, everybody here has a take. RUTO has the president has a take, the opposition leader, Raila, has a take. End of this is that who is going to win? If these members of parliament pass this, we are having a constitutional change.
Does it?
And if the president goes forward is saying that I'm going to win on this at the end, we are not going for that constitutional change. So it's a take situation.
Does that? But Mudhira, but you wanted to make a point on how easy it will be for somebody to go to court and challenge the legality of the selection or the panel that essentially gave us commissioners.
And I encourage you to prepare to go to court, because we're going to have that situation. But that won't stop this government from going on with what it's doing. For instance, we know that the courts halted the implementation of the collection of school fee levies through the e-citizen.
Through the e-citizen, yes.
But the government is still doing it. You remember the High Court ruled that the deployment to Haiti was unconstitutional. Yet we know there is a senior police officer that passed away in Washington, D.C. when he was en route to Haiti, when you know that stopped. So the fact that someone will go to court won't stop this government from trying to do that which may be unconstitutional or against the law. But then we have to carry on. So let's allow these processes to keep moving forward.
Why would you allow this process to move on? I mean, somebody said...
That's because we are on the outside. We are not running the government. So let's prepare to go to court.
That's it, Mudhira. Somebody said this, and I will put it to you this morning, that we spend taxpayers' money to have an entire commission sit at the Bomas of Kenya for 3 months.
Yes.
Essentially going back and forth. Kenyans went there and tabled their proposals, all the way from the cost of living to even the things that we're talking about this morning on issues around CDF and then the 1 man, 1 shilling issue in the country.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden now you're getting told no. You see, all that money that you spend on it, and Jeremiah Kione said it, and I will point you out to whatever he said, and we covered this story on lookuptv.co.ke, where he said that, well, the Nadco report is going to be among those reports that majority of Kenyans have spent their that they earned money on in terms of taxes, but then nothing essentially is going to happen about it.
I do know there is something important that came out of the Nadco process.
Yes.
For once, Mandamano ceased. The 2 top protagonists engaged, and we've had some calm.
Yes.
That in itself is a good thing. There has been talk about entrenching all these funds, CDF,
yes,
GAF, and all that in law, so we stop engaging in illegalities when we can at least sanitize how we go about public affairs.
Yes.
So all these are positive things out of that process. Remember the conversation about the national government totally giving up on devolved functions is also covered within the Nadco report. So in as much as it may not be adopted fully, something I highly doubt, there is some positives that came out of it. Someone will go to court, yes, and I encourage them to, because lazima tupige msasa mchakato mzima wa shughuli za serikali zinavyoongozwa. But we are not in government, so we must allow the government to do that which it was elected to do. So,
are you saying even if it's the wrong approach?
Well, we will only know that it is wrong,
yes,
when it's challenged. But so far, the process has gotten us to the floor of the House.
Sunday, I want you to weigh in on what Mudhira is saying as well. And it's an interesting conversation we're having this morning because the AG was appearing at the National House twice. It's actually happened at the Select Committee, and he did appear again in the course of, was it last week? Yes, again.
Yeah.
And it was told, could you tell us why majority of government projects or government declarations are turning out to be bogus in nature? Are you not doing your job? And then he was asked, can you tell us whether you're under siege? Are you not actually performing your duty? Now, here's a scenario where we're painting two pictures, Sandy. That the law, as it stands, talks about the constitutionality of the selection panel that is speaking as the IEBC commissioners. Fine. And we are well aware of that. But members of parliament are here now talking about proposals that are included in the Nadco report. And do you remember what we did last year? We did pass in both houses that every other proposal that is going to come from the Nadco report was essentially going to be tied within law.
Yeah.
So there are chances then that if it doesn't essentially necessitate a constitutional process, which is a referendum, that it will be law. Which makes it easy then for any other person to go to court and say, well, what is the existing law currently as it is, and when did this process start of ratifying this law? So how can a process of ratifying a law start when there's another law that is in action changing the IEBC panel? Is it not easy for somebody to go to court and say, well, unconstitutional? And that's exactly what we've seen over and over again.
You know, you've said two separate things.
Yes.
One is whether the government is performing or going by the promises that they've given. And that is what my brother Mugera is telling you.
Yes.
We are putting the cart before the horse. The best time to evaluate the government is after Easter. Some of us
Sunny, how accurate is that statement?
I'm qualifying it. I studied during the time when we had, I didn't before CBC.
Yeah.
And we went to school.
That's it.
To study.
Yes.
To do an exam.
Yeah.
At the end of the term.
Including continuous assessment tests.
This is a new happening. As we
continuous assessment
the cards were not part of when we were in our A-level system and even even 844.
Yes.
We did the exams. You either do the mocks, but they didn't inform the final exam. The final exam is 100%. At the universities where you had, we came to get the cuts taking 30% and then 70%.
Which would say it's a proper process.
Yes. But now, when we go to, in all these systems that we borrow from, like in America and what have you, there is no way any system, even the legal or what have you, stops a government who went to the polls to campaign on a particular platform from doing what they promised to do. Let them burn themselves, their fingers, let them mess up themselves. When they come back to us in 4 years, in 5 years, then they have failed. But you see, if you are in the opposition, it means that people did not elect you because of the platform of the things you promised. If you are in government, people elected you on the platform of what you promised. So the other is telling you, let's see the government mess itself up. Yes.
Mudhara, is that accurate?
Yes.
It is.
No, Mudhara, on what basis?
No, that is number one.
Even the Constitution doesn't allow that.
No.
It gives me
the Constitution envisages a government at a time.
That's it.
And when that government is in power...
Sunday also gives me the power to go to court and challenge the government in place.
What we are doing right now is what we call the judicial activism.
Yes.
The judicial activism is where we now want to take what the government, the performance of government and what have you, into court. The activism is supposed to be on the streets. It's supposed to be by civil society. It's not supposed to be by elected people seated in the same parliament. drawing from the same government and benefiting from the same.
Sandy, but
once you are elected a member of parliament,
yes,
you are not supposed to be a street player. You are supposed to now to legislate in parliament, mobilize, convince, debate, make people what Momanyi wanted to be as Speaker of Akisi was to then moderate the various views from various quarters, differing views, but not we are not a half-term system where this government stop. Let's see what you want to do with the housing. Stop. Let's see what you want to do with it. It is a whole government plans from A to Z.
Could make it legal, Sandy. Nobody says nobody. Even the courts have not said stop. They've said just make it legal.
Even by the way, how many cases have gone to court and the court has said no, this one was okay. Proceed. You know what that does? You know what that does? Yes. Simba? Yes. It takes away from time. Implementation time. But that's because we are in a cycle. We are it's not. That's the beauty of democracy. That is judicial activism. Let's get away from that. When we come to the issue of IEBC, we are saying that already there exists law. If there is a new law tomorrow, it is a new law. But before that, there was no lacuna. There was law. This law that established this panel. This law that gives this panel power to work, it is the law that the judge, Justice Dande, relied on to tell them that you have the right to go on and finish your process because you are rightfully established. But we are also forgetting that the mandate of the parliament is actually to establish law, to make law. So if they make a new law that supersedes the law that existed yesterday, today's law takes precedent. So if today, like I told you, like we have just told you, because of the selfish interests also in this Nadco report, if by midnight, if these guys decide they are not going home until midnight, and they pass the omnibus, because nobody is opposing the Nadco report, and the others say, it tells you the best thing about it, it stopped maandamano, it stopped the bad blood, and it is promising. It is giving the opposition their opposition, official opposition leader position and 2 positions, meaning Raila will be in if he doesn't get the job in Africa AU. He will be in parliament. And Kalonzo, his deputy, because he has 2 deputies, and Martha Karua will be there. All of them will be in parliament on salary, and they will have a new motorcade, and you will pay.
No, but remember this thing here.
Momanyi, but
in the opposition,
Momanyi, I also want to check in this direction then. I mean, if whatever Sandy is saying is true, that well, nobody is opposing the Nadco report.
The opposition itself is opposing the Nadco. Remember, Eugene Wamalwa never signed the report. Martha Karua distanced herself from the report. So if you're saying that the whole opposition is in it on the Nadco report, then you are wrong. There's a possibility that this faction of the opposition, some of its members, are going to withdraw if this cost of living is not comprehensively addressed. Remember the report.
Remind Momanyi, Eugene Wamalwa is in Kitale. He's not in parliament.
But he's in the opposition. Yes, members of parliament. Yes, soldiers. Yes, soldiers.
Yes. Could you continue on that?
Yes, soldiers.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Let's look at the Wamboka and let's look at Salasia.
Yes.
Those are a few of the soldiers for Eugene Wamalwa. Being in the opposition doesn't mean that you have to get the largest number of the majority. At least you have the members. So members represent at least a percentage of the Kenyans. So going to the opposition, we say that these members who make up the opposition can withdraw the membership from the opposition. Say that let's make our front, because the key issue is not addressed. That's why they say the report going to the president and they swore to be tabled in the parliament. So why was these other issues which were not addressed were referred to the president and the opposition leader to address them? So there's a very, very critical issue on that. And going back to what my senior, Mr. Sande, said on these cases, the government cases being bogus. I can say that we lack that leadership of comprehensivity. We have that some members, we have that egoism. Everybody wants to be seen that he has done this and this. Nobody is going to at least accommodate others and say that we have done. They want to be on top of the task of this luxuries of
Yes.
the Lexus now, as we call it at the moment, because the president always moves in the Lexus. So when you look at them, they say that I have done this and this. Nobody is acknowledging the effort of these other members, all of these cabinet members who have contributed. Now you look at the executive, it's not even consulting the AG on the way forward, because the Attorney General's office is the legal advisor to the executive. So it's not giving its advisory on the what's going the government. This is the project we want to undertake. Is it the process in going in the legal way? This is how we should approach it from the legal perspective. So whatever the executive is going to implement, let's approach it from the legal perspective. That's why everything is failing, because they're not approaching them from the legal perspective. So with that, everything is going to flop. But unless and otherwise, we acknowledge the effort and other offices in place in making sure that whatever we pass is all inclusive and there's some in-depth research on it.
That's it. Mudiora, but I want to ask you this question essentially on Raila Amolo Odinga's...
Just before you ask, I would like to caution Sandy here that it's not proper to call what's happening right now with regard to our judiciary judicial activism. Yes, the judiciary is an arm of government that should be independent, and when citizens or entities within the country approach them for guidance and deliberations on matters, they should be allowed to do their work. Yeah,
pretty much. So let me go then to the demeanor of one Raila Amolo Odinga. Can you sort of help us weigh on this particular issue? Because it's not that Raila Amolo Odinga was okay with not being entirely involved in the selection process of IEBC commissioners. That's, when you look at it, you would say one reason that is very close to one Raila Amolo Odinga is the constitutionality of the IEBC panel.
I explained here before that the commission we had that handled the 2022 general election was decided upon by himself and the then president.
That's it.
So he's used to being consulted.
That's it.
So when he was not consulted on the constitution of the panel that will select the commissioners now, he of course felt left out. But ideally, that's not how it should be. There is a process that's laid out in the Act. And that process was followed to the latter. And when this matter went to court, Judge Thande pronounced that the process is above board. So he has no role to play in that. And all Kenyans should know. He's trying to get involved through the Nadco report. Because he knows, since he now has a bargaining chip, that when that panel is expanded, he will personally give names of people who will be part of that panel. Ideally, that's not how we should run the country. Those who wrote our constitution saw this whole process through. The president, even though he was a bit overbearing, he did follow how all these guidelines are stated.
Just hold on with your... let me give you some background before I cross over to Sunday, because, gentlemen, we really have to remember what all of this two premiers were involved in this Nadco report essentially said about IEBC. Now, Mudira, let me remind you back to what the Kenya Kwanza side was saying, that out of all the issues that were raised at the Nadco the deliberations, they said the only thing that we can talk about is the reconstitution of IEBC. The rest of them, the government is working on it, all the way from the cost of living to even other issues that were raised in the Nadco report. Even the president himself said, kama tunazongea ni mambo ya IEBC, lakini zingine wacha, my government is already taking charge, and it's going to take some time before Kenyans start realizing on even issues on the cost of living. Then why didn't the both of them, immediately after the Nadco report was realized, then why didn't the both of them even call up for special sitting at the National House? Talk to the National House, Speaker Moses Wetangula, tell him, well, there's an issue here that we essentially have to talk about. On the Nadco report, proposals on IEBC, we've agreed on it. There have been proposals that come from those sides. Can you please ratify that so that we start the process of IEBC selection? We are speaking here when the same issue that the president wanted to change is currently taking precedence.
Yes.
So what are you reading from both ends? Raila Amolo Odinga is saying, if you give me commissioners, that's the only time I'll go to the streets. But he's not protesting that process right now.
Well, we know that a politician's first priority is to get elected. And after they're elected, second priority is to get re-elected. Raila Odinga is currently out of government. President William RUTO is at the helm. He is protected by the law as long as he operates within it and within its framework. He allowed for this election to be in place. You remember the final signature was his. So the fact that the names that came to him were proposed as per by law, but he oversaw the process, he is imagined to have some influence over who the members of that panel will select as commissioners. Now, Raila Odinga knows that William RUTO has acted within the law, but he has selfish interests disguised as public interests.
Was that one for Raila Amolo? So be it.
Yes.
I mean, regardless of the way you look at it, so be it. They call it what is a fair process in terms of constituting this panel. They're supposed to do these IBC interviews. That's why Raila Odinga calls it.
He knows.
Let me clear on this before.
Let me interject on
that.
There's something which is of importance, which is being missed out. Remember, these positions, or this opposition position and the deputies, which is being created, it's not a self-interest for Raila. Let's look at the broader picture. When there was Mandamano, we just now led to at least there's some lowering the cost of living, which is of beneficial to us, everybody, including my friend Carriera. Yeah, today you can see the petrol prices are going down. But given the previous time, they were hiking. Why? Because we signed an agreement, an MOU, which was, we can call it a bogus also, which was to swindle money from the deal.
Which is essentially by the currently
acting. But the same government. Yes. So Raila was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for us all.
On the issue for IEBC, that's what Mudiora is talking about. On the issue for IEBC, which is essentially included in the Nadco report.
Yeah,
that's essentially what is alluding to.
From 7 to 9, what you are looking at is that they need to be, we have to get at least more intellects or elites to this committee. We have to increase the number for these members.
For the panel, yes.
For the panel. So it's not that Raila is going to sit there. He's also creating a job for others.
Yes.
And remember, after Raila is gone, there will be others. And also, on this opposition, you saw the Mandamano, they called it illegal, the tear gas, the opposition, because it's not a recognized office in Kenya. So that's why there are also those, even the destruction of property. Imagine the owner of that vehicle, or the journalist who suffered. Because this thing is not recognized. But when you recognize the opposition, there's some protection, there's some dignity to that office. So in the future, maybe my friend will be in the opposition. What will we be expecting? Will we be saying that he's fighting for his self-interest? So let's look at
on IEBC, clear your sentiments on it. That Raila Amolo Odinga has disguised his personal interests as public interest on the selection panel.
Yes, he has. And this is how. Like I said, the 7 members of the currently existing panel,
yes,
the president had influence over who got in. Raila Odinga was not consulted. So you can imagine a process with 7 people. It's like you're starting a game and you're 7 goals down.
Is it Raila or the opposition?
Imaginable. Like you imagine that you're 7 goals down.
Yes.
Yes.
And in a previous match, which you lost, by the way, you had a 50-50 head start. So what Raila Odinga currently wants is he gets an opportunity to determine who else joins that selection panel
That's it,
so
that's
that
it.
the
Mhm.
commissioners
Yes.
who will eventually be part of those who will oversee the boundaries review
Yes.
and delimitation
Yes.
and the 2027 elections are not strangers to him. That's where the selfish interest comes.
Sunday, and that's why I wanted to weigh in. Sunday, could you give us a proper background?
And
yes,
just before
yes,
you go to Sunday,
yes.
here is why I have an issue with this. Kenya is a multi-party democratic state. Yes, we may have the two big parties, but then they are not the only players in that space. We have other parties. For instance, there is Wiper. For instance, there is NAC Kenya. There is DAP. There are upcoming parties such as the Great Nationhood Party of Kenya. Actually, almost 100 parties.
Yes.
You can imagine a situation that locks out all these other players, but then allows number two to have number one on the table. That's what I have a problem with. If the process is going to be fair and representative, let us just act according to what the law says.
I'll be coming to you. Sunday hasn't spoken. Please don't forget that point. Please do not forget that point. Sunday, you see, what Muthiora is not painting out clearly, and he's avoided that question.
Yes.
Please paint it out for us. Sunday, you do remember very well that the Kenya Kwanza side, when they look at the issues that were raised by the opposition side, they said that the only issue that essentially would make sense for them to talk about is the reconstitution of IEBC. You do remember during that period. Good. So we've gone through the entire process. Even the president was ready to talk about it.
Yes.
He said that once they discuss, they're done with it, we're going to make sure that that report is tabled and implemented quicker that. So you like to think that those two guys, Raila Amolo Odinga and one President, Dr. William RUTO, that upon that report coming out, they would have singled out one issue, at least to begin with, because number one, of the urgency that it deserved, because of the constitutional crisis that we're going into, and the honesty that this is exactly what we need to talk about. Why then didn't we see both sides pull for even a special sitting to ratify those proposals for IEBC? Right now, Sandy, we are talking about those interviews already ongoing, when the two of them, prior to the demonstrations, they said, this, we have to talk about it.
One thing you must know that now public participation is anchored in law.
Yes.
So space for public participation through what we are now doing, the media and all other discussions in public space had to be allowed to go on.
Yes.
One. Two, the agency that we are now talking about has only been assumed 1 week, 2 weeks ago by the ruling of Justice Zande.
Yes.
Before that, everybody was laid back because they thought maybe it will be overtaken by time.
Yeah.
So you can see that is. But again, like you said, painting the background picture of all this, Kenya is we've thrived in dialogues. Everything we have done, the IPPG of 1997, of 2007 by Kibaki, the issues of discussion of the post-violence,
the Kriegler report.
The Kriegler report,
yes,
and the Kofi Annan process.
Yes.
It has all been negotiated democracy, negotiated issues. That's where we've been, and even after the elections of 2017, there were issues until now. The negotiated approach at the Harambee House,
yes,
between Uhuru and Raila, and it has all been that way. The only person that has been constant in all this has been Raila Amolo Odinga. So that is where you should actually, that's why you cannot penalize Muthiora by telling you it's selfish interest. Because the whole process since Moi, even after 1997 election, it was NDP of Raila and Moi, and negotiated democracy. You remember the adage of Jogo Amemeza tractor. And it is he is the common denominator in all this. So it has been about interest. Right now, he's the law And I think that's why I penalize my brother Kidogo when he says that Raila was left out in the establishment of this panel. It's not true. There was a court order that said this is how the panel should be constituted. It was brought to parliament. It went through the parliament. We are talking about democracy where the majority have their way and the minority have their say. The entire team were in parliament and they debated and they voted and they lost. And the panel was established as of law. And it has gone even to court, and court has said this panel exists rightfully according to the law. So there is a point you must agree that surely in fact, even the constitution of that panel, you may take it away from RUTO. RUTO actually did not play an overt role because the parliament established the panel for selection. The panel for the selection gave us this panel. This panel has been able to do what it has done up to so far. Yes. What we need to be talking about right now is that where we are, we have Nadco, which is actually National Dialogue Committee
report. Yes.
The word dialogue is the underline. And what were we doing it for? For national peace. For national tranquility.
Was it a talk show that was paid for by taxpayers' money?
It has come up with a recommendation.
Does it?
And these are the recommendations now that we are saying, and you are saying they should have been passed yesterday. We are saying they are now here. So what we need to be dissecting are the recommendations within the report. But we also don't have even the time, the leisure to do it. And we don't have even the opportune time to do it because this thing is going to pass. And I can tell you, you'll call me tonight. It is going to pass as an omnibus, all of it. Why? Because both sides have something in it. One, the members of parliament have their thing cut out. So once it leaves National Assembly, it will go to the Senate. It passes. The Prime Minister position is now being entrenched in law. It is going to for the side of the government. The official position have something to take home. The women of this country have the
2/3 gender roles.
It's going to be a top up. By the way, it is a major thing. You should actually be addressing yourself to that because it has major
implications,
budget, financial and leadership implication. Because now we are going to have the same way we've been doing the top ups in county assemblies. We are now coming to top ups in the parliament, and we are now having a proposal for a 50-50 in the Senate. So it is going to be a big structural change. Yes, part of these things, the question is, which one goes to the referendum and which one does? But even if it goes to the referendum, you already have given the assembly, the MCAs, the award fund. So, and they are the ones to ratify at the assemblies. 24 assemblies out of 47. If they ratify it, it becomes law. So you see, everything has been laid out and planned out. We as members of public, we will only wait to watch.
There's something we are missing out.
Mudera, I want you to hold on your thoughts. But I remember the chance that I wanted to give you before we cross over to Sunday. Yes.
There's something I was disagreeing with my friend here.
Yes, Momani.
On this Raila Constant thing, as addressed by Mr. Sunday.
Remember,
I was to question my friend first before I continue on. TG party, is it in the government or opposition?
It doesn't matter.
Well, what I know is we stand for RUTO. That's our ideology. So we would like for policy and all operations of the government to be done as per the RUTO philosophy. So it doesn't matter whether we are in or out of government.
Okay, that's absolutely, that's good. Now this the opposition is articulating for this. It's not a Raila thing. It's what's the benefit for Mwananchi. So let's not put it in one side. The Nadco committee, Raila was not there. We had the ODM members, with the DAP members, with the NAC members, with the Wiper members. So with that, it's not just an ideology for Raila. It's other parties who are there, and they have their own. Like you have the RUTO. Then, and now when you bring others on board, they also have something they stand for.
Yes.
So let's also recognize that, not recognizing that one element which has been constant. And going forward, we are going to embrace, because of the merging issues, we just brought now to the negotiated democracies where we don't have to subject ourselves to some rigorous processes. So we have to agree on some things that this and this, if we go this process tiresome, why can't we sit down and do this and this? So that's where the negotiated democracies came in, because we don't have to go to the old procedures, which is costly.
Yeah.
And then we can avert those costly things.
Yes.
By having a conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
So with that,
yes,
the other thing remaining is that the opposition, the government have gotten their way. What has the common mwananchi got from all that thing? Has the cost of living gone down? Because these positions is taxpayers' money. So what is common mwananchi going to gain? What
Yes.
are we going to gain?
Yes.
From the grassroots.
Yeah.
Because now, if this other thing go, we are going to create a public opposition led by the mwananchi. The government is addressing, but as common mwananchi who are paying the taxes, our things are not addressed. So we have to take up the arms.
Simba, let me say something that Momanyi will appreciate. According to the law as it currently exists, that IEBC selection panel is supposed to be constituted in this way. Members are supposed to be drawn from the PPLC, from the Parliamentary Service Commission, from the clergy, from the Law Society of Kenya.
Yeah.
Now, we know that in Parliament, President William Ruto commands a majority. So most likely, he will have leeway. You go to the PPLC, the constitution therein, William Ruto has influence as well. We know William Ruto was elected president by a huge backing of the clergy. So this whole process must have given him advantage. That's what I meant when I said that panel would have people who lean more to him than to anyone else. But that process is per the law as laid out in our constitution. So I will not fault him. Questions were raised and this matter was taken to court. And the court pronounced itself that that panel is duly constituted.
Yes.
So then I ask, where is Raila Odinga's role in this whole process if it's not his own selfish interest? There are players in the game, such as Mudiora Kariara or the others, who would want to be part of this process.
Yes.
But because we already have a properly constituted mechanism, we do not want to put ourselves in there. But then through the Nadco report, there are recommendations about how that panel can be expanded to include 2 more people.
Yes.
Do you know who is going to recommend those names? Now it's not going to be through such rigorous process, but just by you and me talking and saying, tuongeze nani na nani. That's not how a country should be run. That's what I'm trying to say, Momanyi.
And is the minority going to get the way?
Now,
That's
the
the
minority's
Yes.
interest
Yes.
has already been taken care of through
Wow.
this process. It's just that you cannot call the shots when you're in the minority. You'll be heard,
Yes.
but then those in the majority will pass the decisions.
But when you look at it like that, and Sandy, I just want you to clear this conversation. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. We only have like 2 minutes to step out of the studio this morning. That your view is that this Nadco report, once tabled, is going to move quicker than that. That if indeed the government appeases the members of parliament, do you still stand that no member of parliament opposes the Nadco report as it is?
I believe there is no member of parliament who will oppose. We have 2 divides in parliament. We have the opposition and we have the government.
Yes.
And the opposition was represented at Bomas very effectively.
Yes.
And their views were taken.
The
government the same. And even those who are opposed to the opposition, in the opposition circles, are out of parliament. Some of them without numbers, like Madakarua has 0 number. And she holds no sway. Already, this man from Nyandarua,
yes,
your friend Jeremiah Kioni, my friend,
yes,
we used to belong to Jubilee, the Jubilee that Sabina Chege has carried all of it to Parliament, to government, and he has no sway. So right now, and I repeat my words, there is icing on the cake. The icing was the funds. So once it is packaged together, in the essence of in the packaging of what we call the omnibus.
Yes.
In the omnibus, you pass everything, all and everything, in one go. I have it. Nay, lose.
Yeah.
And because it has been packaged, it's a clever way,
yes,
of having it all done.
Yes.
So the next step we should just be worried about is which ones require constitutional amendments, and where should the constitutional amendment be done. And Momanyi now brings in the issue of cost. Do we want a full-drawn referendum?
Yes.
Or do we want a process that is all-inclusive within Parliament?
Yes.
And all that is cheap?
Yes.
That does not cost us money.
Pretty much. Mudiora, please, just 10 seconds as well. Do you also stand of the opinion that no member of Parliament in that House would oppose the Nadco report?
I highly doubt that there'll be any member of Parliament who will be opposed to the adoption of the Nadco report.
Yes.
That said, I want to encourage all those Kenyans who are opposed to how this whole process has been carried out to go to court. Let us not tire of making sure that this government operates within the law. Because that way we'll keep moving forward.
Pretty much. All right, Momanyi, clear out 10 seconds. If you speak, I won't speak. Still stand of the position that no member of Parliament opposes the Nadco report. 10 seconds.
Being human in nature, unless one of the parties to the Nadco or the between the government and the opposition, unless one of the parties withdraws from the support and says that you have not complied with this and this, whatever you had the agreement, then there is a team that is likely not to support the report. So with that, it depends on what's the win-win situation here.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Guess what? That's the conversation this morning on the Nadco report. So let's see exactly what happens, because there are also fears that Raila Amolo Odinga might get a top AU job. Does that remove him out of the conversation for active politics around the Nadco report? Some of which would essentially not see him go to the street, because people who normally have those jobs never go to the street. This is the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893